Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ZAKIAH MAYSARAH binti Muhammad KHAIRULANUAR and my ID number is SEC23070041. Today, I'm going to present to you about summary of my findings and reflection from my interviewee. My interviewee is Mr. Russell and he is 30 years old and currently doing his PhD at University Technology Petronas. He is from Zimbabwe, making it in a Spanish circle category, which is English is used as a foreign language in his country.
Okay, good evening. My name is ZAKIAH MAYSARAH, but you can call me MAYSARAH, and I'm from College Professional Marathi Iskandar. So tonight's interview is for my assignment, Varieties of English Language. So
All right.
first, can you introduce yourself and where are you from and a little bit about your background?
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, MAYSARAH, and good evening to you as well. Thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, my name is Russell. I am from Zimbabwe, and I'm currently doing my PhD at University Technology Petronas. Yeah.
All right, I see.
And
Okay.
yeah,
So
and
without wasting our time, can we start for our first question? Okay.
sure, no
Okay.
problem. Go ahead.
So for the first question, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country?
Okay, thank you so much. So, English became very important in my country because before our independence, we were colonized by the Great Britain. So, because we're a colony of England or of Britain, English became the widely spoken language because of this colonial past that we have. Yes.
I see. Okay, so thank you. Moving on to the next question. Do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country?
Yeah, that's a good question because when I look at it, the most young people these days are into social media a lot, whether it is Instagram or all the social media tools out there. So if you look at it, especially in my country, they often make their posts and sharing in English language. So I think it's a good tool, but it's just that I get worried because maybe it's not the best tool because there's no one there to tell people this is the correct spelling or this is the wrong spelling or this is the correct pronunciation. So maybe that needs sometimes it's not as accurate as it should be. But as far as just being a general tool is concerned, I think it's good.
Oh, I see. Okay, so thank you. We move to our next question. What is the current status of English used in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, and daily life?
Yes, English is very common in my country. In fact, it's of course we have our other languages, but it is the main language for business, for schools, for we speak English quite widely in Zimbabwe. So of course, nowadays they are trying to change that, but I think for the foreseeable future, English is quite the main language. Even with our national events, it's also widely spoken. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's move to our next question. Do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens a local language, and why?
Okay, my personal view of this is, of course, like in Zimbabwe, we from the time we go to school, our school system is based on English language. So having gone through that system, when I go back home, of course, I speak to my family, to my parents in my native language. I personally don't think that it's a threat to my native language. I think it's actually a good thing to be able to speak a second or a third language apart from your native language, because that also helps you to broaden how you think. For example, the very fact that I can speak English and I can also speak my native language means that for me, I feel like it helps me to think more than just somebody maybe who speaks one language. So I don't think it's a threat, but I think it also makes you appreciate your own native language if you can speak English or or any other language, but of course English in my case and in most of our cases. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay, next question. In your opinion, do you think English will always be the world's language? Why or why not?
This is a very interesting one, because if you look at if you look at how English came about to be the world's language, I think we can trace it to the Renaissance period of Europe, and also we can, if I'm not mistaken, because Britain colonized most of the countries of the world, so by that, from that perspective, English became widely spoken. Do I think it will remain? I think it will remain for some time, because I personally believe that if something works, why change it? And we, at the end of the day, irregardless of what language I speak, you speak, the next person speaks, we need some common ground. And if English is able to provide that common ground for us to engage in diplomacy, in trade, in cultural exchange, all these things, we need a language that's common to both or to other parties. So if it works, why change it? So I think that for me, there is no need to start dismantling and removing it and trying to create another one which will be just but we don't know with changing times. We don't know what the next generations will do, or if there will be another superpower that will come and impose its language on the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay, next question. Do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation with
Yeah.
when speaking with other using English? If it is so, why does it happen?
Yeah, this happens a lot. This happens a lot, uh, because especially amongst non-native speakers, because I've observed that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but everybody who has a certain who speaks a certain language apart from English, they have a way of pronouncing words. So we can try to say, for example, weather, right? And weather and weather. So that somebody can think, oh, you're talking about the weather, meaning the sky, and somebody can think, oh, you're talking about whether it's this or that. So that happens quite a lot. And yeah, sometimes you might have to say a word 2 or 3 times for you to get clarity, or for me to also understand what somebody is trying to say.
Oh, I see. Okay. Next question. What are some English sound or word that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce?
Yeah. This is a good one, because I'm always making jokes with my friends. Sometimes when I have the chance to visit home, uh, again, like I said, because of the native tongue that we have, there is maybe a certain way that our tongue, rolls, or it moves. So I remember last time. Um, there's a certain, yeah, like I said, weather and weather. That's one of the words that's
Yeah.
commonly mispronounced. or the other one is what? Numbers. Yeah, 9 is also quite often mispronounced. Yeah.
All right, I see. Okay, so our last question for tonight.
Yeah.
Can you hear the differences between words like sheep, SHIP, or sheep, SHEEP? How do you try to pronounce them differently?
Okay, for me, if it's that's a very interesting one, because sheep meaning the animal sheep, and ship. So for me, I tend to stress the last. If it's ship, then it's ship. But if it's sheep, then I try to lengthen the vowel there. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so I think that's all for now. Thank you so much for spending your time with me and answering a few questions from me. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem, MAYSARAH, and all the best with your studies and with your with the rest of your work. Yeah.
Okay.
The first question is from aspect number 1, which is historical and development. Our first question is, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country? So, to summarize, Mr. Russell stated that English became so important in his country due to Great Britain colonization. He mentioned that before gaining independence, the country was under Britain's rule, which led to the widespread use of English. He also highlighted that the colonial past played a significant role in making English a dominant language. Now, moving on to our second question, which is, do you think technology like social media or internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country? So from the interview session, Mr. Russell stated that social media plays a significant role in how young people use English in his country. He mentioned that many young people actively engage with platforms like Instagram or any social media tools and often posting and sharing content in English. He believes that social media is a useful tool for language exposure, but he also expressed concern that it may not be the best learning method. This is because there is no guidance on correct spelling or pronunciation, which can lead to inaccuracies. Despite this limitation, he still views social media as a beneficial tool for language use and practice. Next, I'm going to explain about the summary of findings and reflection from aspect number 2, which is the current progress and reaction. The third question is, what is the current status of English use in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, and daily life? So, Mr. Russell stated that English in his country is very common and is widely used in school, workplace, and daily life. He mentioned that although there are other local languages, English remains the main language for business and education. He also pointed out that English is commonly spoken at national events. However, he noted that there are efforts to promote local languages, but he believed that English will continue to be the dominant language in the future. Moving on to the next question, do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? And why? During the interview, Mr. Russell stated that he does not see the dominance of English as a threat to his native language. He explained that in Zimbabwe, the education system is primarily based on English, but at home, he continues to communicate with his family in his native language. He believes that knowing English or any additional language is beneficial because it helps expand one way of thinking. He gave an example of how being bilingual allows him to think more broadly compared to someone who speaks only one language. Furthermore, he mentioned that learning English has actually made him appreciate his native language even more. Because of this, he views the presence of English as a positive influence rather than a danger to local languages. Next, for the fifth question, in your opinion, do you think that English will always be the world's language? Why or why not? So, Mr. Russell stated that English became the world's language due to the historical factors, particularly the Renaissance period in Europe and Britain colonization. He explained that because Britain colonized many countries, English became widely spoken. He believes that English will continue to be the dominant global language for some time as it serves as a common ground for communication in diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchange. He argued that since English is already functioning effectively as a global language, there is no need to replace it. However, he acknowledged that with changing times, future generations might have a different perspective and a new superpower could emerge and impose its own language worldwide. Despite this possibility, he believes that for now, English will remain the dominant global language. Moving on to our last aspect, which is phonological aspect for our sixth question. Do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood others' people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If it's so, why does it happen? So, Mr. Rasa stated that mishearing or misunderstanding pronunciation happens frequently, especially among non-native English speakers. He observed that people who speak other languages tend to pronounce English words in a way influenced by their native language. He gave an example of how similar sounding words like weather and weather can cause confusions as someone might misunderstood which word is being used. He mentioned that this issue occurs quite often and sometimes words need to be repeated 2 or 3 times to ensure clarity. According to him, pronunciation differences can make communication challenging, but repeating words helping in understanding the intended meaning. For question number 7, which is what are some English sound or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? Mr. Russell stated that he often jokes with his friends about pronunciation differences, especially when he visits home. He explained that because of the influence of his native language, the way the tongue moves affect pronunciation. He gave an example of how words like weather and weather is commonly mispronounced, leading to misunderstanding. He also mentioned that numbers, particularly the pronunciation of 9, are often mispronounced. For him, these differences are noticeable and sometimes humorous, highlighting how native languages influence the way people speak English. And for the last question, can you hear the differences between words like ship, S-H-I-P, or sheep, S-H-E-E-P? How do you try to pronounce them differently? So, Mr. Russell stated that he finds distinguishing between words like sheep and ship interesting. He explained that sheep refers to the animal while ship is a type of vessel. To differentiate between them, he tends to stress the final sound of sheep and lengthens the vowel sound in sheep. This way, he ensures clarity in pronunciation and avoid confusion between the two words. To summarize, the influence of English in Zimbabwe has greatly shaped the way people communicate and exercise opportunities for growth. Mr. Russell's insight reflect a broader global patterns where English remains essential in education, work and daily life that play a crucial role in connecting individuals across different backgrounds. His view aligned with the global trends where English is essential for communication and career opportunities. His perspective reflects the balance many multilingual societies seek between English proficiency and preserving native languages.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is FARHANA IZZATI binti Muhammad SUKRI. My ID number is SEC23070090. Today, I'm going to present about my summary of findings and reflection from various aspects that we have asked our interviewee. So my interviewee is Miss Delvia Alberto Bacela. She is 20 years old and she is currently pursuing her degree in University Technology Petronas. She is from Mozambique, which is from outer category. Mozambique can use English as second language in their country.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good too. Alright, my name is FARHANA. I am from KPM Suri Iskandar, and today we're going to conduct an interview session for my assignment, Variety of English Language. So first of all, Can you introduce yourself? Where are you from? And a little bit about your background.
I'm Delva Alberto Bacella. I'm from Mozambique. Now I'm an international student at UTP University Technology Petronas. Taking electrical and electronic engineering course. I'm in second year and second sem. So, we want to talk about my country, no? Actually, Mozambique is located in uh, Africa, near of some countries that speak English, such as South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Swati. So that's make us um, increased use of English in business classes and diplomacy. So also it's necessary to know English because our country has a too many tourists and some companies they are using contribute to growing of English. So yeah.
All right. All right. So my first question, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country?
Um, I think English became important in my country because first is our the country need of us speak English, so it's important to know English to communicate to each other, like when someone come to visit, and also has too many tourists. Such as places like beach, mountains, we have a full tourism. So English is one international language that many people speak. So it's important to know, and also for the business. Uh, we have too many companies from international people in our country. So it's important to know and to communicate. And also, yeah, it's some kind of good to know more language. So yeah.
I see. Moving on to my next question. Do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country?
Technology, especially social media and the internet, has significantly influenced how people learn in English in Mozambique. First, many young people nowadays access content from TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, so which expose them to the language informally. But also, the presence of international organization and multinational companies operating in Mozambique has also contributed to the growth of and the importance of English.
All right. So, what is the current status of English use in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, and daily life?
Uh, since English is not our primary language, we use in only education as a course, not like prioritized. But there are some schools in our country that is for international schools. They use only English, but we use also in business and tourism. Many schools teach English as foreign language. It's often require higher education and professional careers. Yeah.
All right. Do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? Why?
Uh, the dominance of English can have both benefits and drawbacks. One of on one hand, the English provide more opportunities for Mozambicans to engage in international business and education and travel. But in the other hand, it might be post-strat our local language by reducing the usage and in professional and education settings. Yeah,
All right.
that's the
In your opinion, do you think English will always be the worst language? Why or why not?
I think English may continue to be dominant language, global language, but Other languages like Mandarin, Chinese, or Spanish could also gain influence over time. However, due to its strong presence in international business, since science and technology, English likely to remain one of the most widely spoken languages in the world.
So next, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen?
I think many Mozambicans may mishear or misunderstood English pronunciation due to the difference between Portuguese and in English phonetics. This happens because English has sound that doesn't exist in Portuguese, leading to the difficulties in distinguish certain words. Yeah.
Alright, my second last question. What are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce?
I think some challenging English sounds in Mozambique include like th, like to pronounce think or this. Uh, Sometimes can make it quite difficult, and difference between r and l. And l sounds. Words like word, tree, and beach is can tricky for many Portuguese speakers.
Alright, my last question. Can you hear the difference between words like sheep, S-H-I-P, or S-H-E-E-P? How do you try to pronounce them differently?
I think the difference between these two can be difficult to distinguish because of Portuguese does not have some vowel length contrast as English. One way to improve pronunciation is by practicing vowel sounds separately and listening to the native speaker to developing the R and distinction. Yeah.
Alright, that's all from me. Thank you, Devia, for joining me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
For my first question from aspect 1, which is historical and development, the question is, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country? So to summarize, according to Ms. Delvia, English has become important in her country for several reasons. Firstly, it is essential for communication, particularly in tourism, as many visitors come to see the country's beaches and mountains. Since English is a widely spoken international language, it helps locals interact with tourists. Secondly, the presence of international business makes English crucial for professional communication. In her view, English is a normal and necessary language for both social and business interactions. Next, moving on to our next question, which is, do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country? Ms. Delvia shared that social media and the internet have played a big role in helping people learn English. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook expose people to the language informally, making it easier for them to pick it up. She also mentioned that the presence of international organizations and multinational companies in Mozambique has increased the importance of English. As a result, more people are using and learning the language. Next, I'm going to explain about the summary of findings and reflection from aspect number 2, which is current progress and reaction. The third question is, what is the current status of English used in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, and daily life? According to Ms. Delvia, English is not the primary language in her country. It is mainly used in education as a course but is not prioritized. However, international schools use English exclusively. Additionally, English is used in business and tourism. Many schools teach English as a foreign language, and it is often required for higher education and professional careers. Next, let us jump to the first question, which is, do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? Why? So to summarize, Ms. Delvia believed that English dominance has both benefits and drawbacks. On one hand, it provides more opportunities for Mozambicans in international business, education, and travel. On the other hand, it may threaten local languages by reducing their use in professional and educational settings. For the fifth question, we asked her, in your opinion, do you think English will always be the world's language? Why or why not? So for this question, she said she believed that English may continue to be the dominant global language. However, other languages like Mandarin and Spanish could also gain influence over time. Despite this, English is likely to remain one of the most widely spoken languages due to its strong presence in international business, science, and technology. Moving on to our last aspect, which is the phonological feature. Our sixth question is, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood others people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen? So the result is, Ms. Delvia explains that many Mozambicans mishear or misunderstood English pronunciation due to differences between Portuguese and English phonetics. Some English sounds do not exist in Portuguese, making it difficult to distinguish certain words. For question number 7, we asked her, what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? And she replied by mentioning that some challenging English sounds for Mozambicans include the TH sound in words like thing and this, as well as the distinction between R and L. Words like world, tree, and beach can also be tricky for many Portuguese speakers. Next, our last question, which is, can you hear the difference between words like sheep, S-H-I-P, and sheep, S-H-E-E-P? How do you try to pronounce them differently? So for this question, she explained that differentiating these words can be challenging because Portuguese does not have the same vowel contrast as English. To improve pronunciation, she suggests focusing on vowel sound separately and listening to native speakers to develop an ear for the distinctions. So to summarize, English has spread in Mozambique due to globalization, tourism, and business. It helps locals communicate with tourists and work in international companies. Social media also makes learning English easier by exposing people to the language daily. Ms. Delvia's response matched global trends, where English is widely used for education, business, and travel.
Hello everyone, my name is FILZAH AQILAH binti Muhammad FAIZ. My number ID is SEC230700091. And today, I'll be introducing my interviewee for the topic of variety of English. This is Abid Rabbani Sofyan. He is 25 years old and comes from Jakarta, Indonesia. Currently further his studies at University Technology Petronas. He falls under the category of expanding. Stay tuned for Abid and his perspective on English in his daily life.
Hi and good evening. Thank you for taking the time to join me today, and I'm very grateful for your effort. Before we get started, allow me to introduce myself. My name is FILZAH AQILAH, and I'm a student from College Professional Marasri Iskandar. We are pursuing in English communication. Before we jump into the question, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Abdul Rabbani Sofyan, but I usually call by Abid. And right now I'm studying in University Technology Petronas, and I'm from Indonesia.
So the first question is, for your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country?
English became important in Indonesia because it was introduced during the colonial times and is now a required subject in schools. Today, knowing English helps Indonesians access global information and improve job prospects.
I see. So do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country?
For technology like social media and the internet has made learning English in Indonesia easier by offering many online resources, but some people still face challenges due to limited access to these technologies.
Okay. What about the current status of English used in your country today? Is it common in school, work, or daily life?
In Indonesia, English is taught in school and used in many workplaces, especially in the big cities. People often use English on social media and in the internet. Knowing English can help with education and also jobs, but not everyone speaks it well.
Do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? Why?
Learning English in Indonesia is help people connect globally and learn about other cultures. But focusing too much on English might cause young people to use local language less, which could which could harm these languages. It's important to find a balance to keep Indonesian cultural heritage alive while also engaging with the world.
So, in your opinion, do you think English will always be the world's language? Why or why not?
Mm. From my perspective, English may not always be the world's dominant language, while it remains key of globalizations and cultural rising languages like Mandarin and advancements in translation technology could challenge in in dominance in the future.
So, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? It's so why does it happen?
Yes, I usually misunderstandings can happen when people have different accents, unclear pronunciations, or when there's a background noise. Using unfamiliar words or speaking too quickly can also cause confusion. These issues are common in both language learning and everyday conversation.
What are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce?
Some English words are tricky for people in Indonesia to say the sound in thing. It's hard to pronounce it. They might say very instead of very.
Can you hear the difference between words like ship, SHIP, or ship, SHEEP? How do you try to pronounce them differently?
Uh, yes, uh, I can different the ship and the ship. Like for the pronunciation for the ship with I ship, but for the ship like my lips like slightly to make the song longer like ship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we have reached the end of our questions. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for answering all my questions and join my interview session. I really appreciate your efforts and I wish you all the best for your study. Thank you.
Alright. Welcome.
So the first question is, how do you think English became so important in your country? Based on Abid's answer, he explained that English became important in Indonesia because it was introduced during colonial times and is now a required subject in school. He also mentioned that English helps Indonesia access global information and improve job prospects. Next, I asked him, do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country? According to Abid, technology, especially social media and the internet, has made learning English in Indonesia easier by offering many online resources. However, he also points out that some people still face challenges due to limited access to this technology. Next question that I asked Abid, what is the current status of English used in your country today? Is it common in school, the workplace, and daily life? He shared that English is taught in schools and widely used in workplace, especially in big cities. People in Indonesia also use English frequently on social media and the internet. However, while knowing English can provide advantage in education and job opportunities, not everyone speaks it well. For the next question, do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? Why? Based on Abid's answer, learning English in Indonesia helps people connect globally and learn about other cultures. But focusing too much on English might cause young people to use local language less, which could harm this language. It's important to find a balance to keep Indonesia's cultural heritage alive while also engaging with the world. Next, in your opinion, do you think English will always be the world's language? Why or why not? Based on Abid's answer, he said that English may not always be the world's dominant language. He also mentioned that while English remains key for globalization and culture, rising language like Mandarin and advancement in translation technology could challenge its dominance in the future. Next question. Do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen? He said that sometimes misheard or misunderstood because misunderstanding can happen when people have different accents, unclear pronunciation, or when there's background noise. Using unfamiliar words or speaking too quickly can also cause confusion. These issues are common in both language learning and everyday. Next, what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? Based on Abid, some English words are tricky for people in Indonesia to say. For example, the word th sounds in think is hard. They might say very instead of very, and sometimes they forget to say the last letter in words like cold. Words like tree, truth, very, world can also be difficult to say correctly. For the last question, can you hear the difference between words like sheep or sheep? How do you try to pronounce them differently? According to Abid, he said that he know the difference between sheep and sheep. He said that he know the word sheep because the pronunciation and the word sheep, his mouth will slightly more longer to make the sound sheep.
English became important in Indonesia due to colonial influence and was later integrated into the education system. Today, it plays a key role in career opportunities and global communication, especially in urban workplace and on social media. Technology has made learning English more accessible, but limited access to digital resources remains a challenge for some. While English helps Indonesians connect with the world, excessive focus on it could reduce the use of local language, threatening cultural heritage. Additionally, pronunciation challenges and misunderstanding due to accents or unclear speech make communication difficult. Through advancement in language learning, continue to improve proficiency.
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is NURFARA MAZZULAMRI and my ID number is SEC 22070099. Today I am going to present to you about my summary of findings and reflection from various aspects that we have asked my interviewee. So my interviewee is Sir Abdul Hakim. He is 25 years old and currently pursuing her degree at University Technology Petronas. He is from Nigeria, making it in outer category which is English as a second language in their country. Yeah, sure. Sorry, sir.
No problem.
Okay. Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine too, thank you. My name is NURFARA Nabila and you can call me Bella. I am student diploma in English communication at College Mushnumara Suriskana Perak, Malaysia. Now, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, my name is Bamidele Adeniyi. I'm a student of University Technology Petronas here in Malaysia.
Okay, so today I would like to conduct an interview session with you due to my assignment, which is Variety of English Language subject. So I will start with question number 1. From your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country?
Okay, the influence of English language in my country started when the British came to Nigeria to colonize Nigeria. So the British entrance into Nigeria, they built schools, several schools in Nigeria. And most of the schools being built by the British, the mode of communication and then the mode of teaching is English language. So right now, most of the universities in Nigeria, the mode of teaching and the mode of communication is English language. So most graduates or undergrads in Nigerian universities currently now speak English language. So English language is a dominant, it has become a lingua franca of the Nigerian business. Yeah.
I see. So for question number 2, do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country?
Yes, it has pros, it has cons. So for example, if you go to social media like TikTok, you will find some TikTok influencers trying to teach how to pronounce English words properly, because we have British English, we have American English. So this English, the spellings and then the pronunciations vary. So in Nigeria, primarily we speak British English. But some universities, some schools, some secondary schools, they've adopted the style of the American English, but not as we try to spell, for example, the word color in British English, it is COLOUR, but in American English, it's COLOR. So these variances, some people prefer the American, some people prefer the British. So you find some influencers on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook trying to teach the American or the British English. That is the cons is that we also have a variant of English in Nigeria called Pidgin English. Pidgin being spelled by PIDGIN. It's an adopted form of English being spoken by some Nigerians. It's not formal English, it's a kind of informal English. So when people speak that often, it often affects the way they pronounce or the way they spell some very correct British English. So it has pros, it has cons. So.
Okay, I see. For question number 3, what is the current status of English use in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, or maybe daily life?
Okay, so let me take it this way. In universities, English is the mode of communication. It is also the mode of teaching. In business or government agencies, English also is the mode of communication or the mode of teaching. But among the locals, they speak a variant of English called Pidgin English. It is not English, but it's also sounding like English. So it's easier for the uneducated ones to adopt that style of English. It's an informal English. But in most formal settings, like schools, government agencies, business organizations, English language is the mode of communication in Nigeria. So it's the lingua franca, it's the official language, yeah.
Okay, thank you. For question number 4, do you think the dominance of English benefits or treats local language? Why?
Okay, so Nigeria has 250 ethnic group, and each ethnic group speaks different language. So But among these 250 ethnic groups, we have three major language, apart from English, which is Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. So these three major languages are not really affected by English. Because, for example, in secondary schools, though English language is the mode of communication, but as a student, you have a free will to choose any of the three major languages. So, for example, I am from the Yoruba ethnic group, and I speak Yoruba language, and I can also speak English language fluently. So, in school, we do English language as a subject. We also choose Yoruba language, which is one of the major ethnic language as a subject. Somebody from the, let's say, southeastern part of Nigeria will choose English language as a subject and Igbo language as a subject. So it is being done so that we don't lose the local language that we have, but just that because we have to use English as a common means of communication around the world, that is why we've not been able to. So it's not really affecting our local language. Not really.
Okay, for question number 5. In your opinion, do you think English will always be the world language? Why or why not?
Okay, so if you look at the world, we have roughly 206 countries in the world, or more than that, depending on how you want to look at it. And for example, in the European countries, English language is the dominant mode of communication. Even in the Western world, say USA and other advanced countries, English language is the most populous mode of communication. Though we have French, we have Greek, we have other forms of communication, but globally, the amount of countries that speak English, the percentage is very high. So to not be left behind, I think it's better one learns how to speak fluent and correct English language. But that doesn't mean that you should forget about your local language. For example, now in Malaysia, I'm also trying to learn the Malay language as well. So that's it.
Okay. For question number 6. Do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen?
Okay, yes. So let me give you an instance. For example, I had once schooled in the United Kingdom, which is England, in the UK. So even in England, there are different ways of speaking English. Where the English is the major thing. So, for example, if you go to the Yorkshire side, Liverpool, Sheffield, those areas, they speak a kind of English that is very, very difficult to understand. They call it Scouse English. If you go to Wales, Wales is also part of the United Kingdom. Wales too, their English is very different. I mean, the way they pronounce, even the way they sound. We call it the phonology. Their phonology is quite different from somebody from Yorkshire. Somebody from Yorkshire, the phonology is quite different from somebody from mid-England, for example. So that is still within England. So there is no way, as far as language is concerned, every human being will have this phonological interference into what you are speaking. So your mother tongue too might also interfere with the way you speak. So when a Malaysian speaks English and a Nigerian speaks English, it sounds differently, but it's still the same English, right? So when someone speaks English and a South African speaks English, there's a variance in the way they speak, in the phonology, because there's an influence from their mother tongue into the language. So that's normal. So at times, some people might pronounce some words, and it's difficult for you to understand because it is not sounding with you. The sound doesn't sit well with you because you are not used to that kind of sound, for example. Or maybe the sentence construction is not proper. It's not properly constructed, for example. So to you, it might sound, oh, this is not correct way of speaking it. You understand? But to an English person, it's going to feel like, oh, no, this is not how you're supposed to speak it. You understand? But because if you're not used to speaking the way they speak, you also feel like, why is he thinking like I'm not speaking the right word? You understand? So of course, there's always phonological interference in how you speak any language, even with English, because mother tongue is very different from what you are trying to speak, which is English.
Okay, I see. Thank you for your answer. Okay, for question number 7, what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? Can you give some example
A
words or sounds?
lot. So
A lot.
yeah. So let's look at Nigeria, for example. We have the north,
Mm-hmm.
and the west, and then the south. That's like 4 different cardinal points. So people from the north, we call them the Hausa people. They have issues with pronouncing P, the letter P,
P,
and
P, I mean P.
P like
Yeah.
for in Ipo, for example, and then uh, uh, F, F as family. So for example, if they want to pronounce 50 ringgit, for example, they will pronounce it as 50 ringgit. Sound like P.
Oh,
You
I
understand?
see.
50 ringgit. To sound like 50.
Okay.
So that's for their own. So if you come to my own ethnic group, Yoruba ethnic group, so we have issues with pronouncing words that ends with S, SH, and CH. For example, some people want to pronounce church, for example, like church. They can pronounce it as shush instead of ch.
Mm-hmm.
So, or they want to pronounce like check shots, for example. They can call it check shots. So they have issues with SH and CH. You understand? So from the people that are on the Igbo side, they have issues with pronouncing any words that has har. Har as in rumor, for example. So they pronounce the har as hell. So instead of rumor, instead of it could be low, they have the phonological, yeah.
Okay, for question number 8, can you hear the difference between words like sheep or sheep? How do you try to pronounce them differently?
So for me, uh, uh, I did oral English in school. So oral English, that is, so when they teach English language as a subject, they teach written, speaking, and written, writing, and oral. So for me, I have an advantage, so I will know. So when you say sheep, which is SHIP, the high is short, but the sheep, it is SH, the E is long. So if you want to transcribe it, there's a small high, and there's a small high and dot by the side. So there is E and there's E. So there are 2 different ones. So that's because me, I understood oral English. So for someone who doesn't understand oral English, they might make a mistake in pronouncing sheep and sheep to be the same thing. You understand? So
that's all.
right. Okay.
So I really appreciate your answer. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for helping me.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
So
Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
All right.
Moving on to my first question from Aspect 1, which is historical and development. The first question is, from your perspective, how do you think English becomes so important in your country? So, to summarize, Sir Abdul Hakim explained that the influence of the English language in Nigeria started during British colonization when the British set up schools and made English the main language of instruction. This continued after Nigeria gained independence, and today, English is still used in most universities and is the main way people communicate, especially in academic settings. He also mentioned that English serves as a lingua franca, a common language that helps people from different ethnic groups communicate with each other. His response shows how the British colonial influence still affects Nigeria's education system and how English is central to communication across the country. Now, moving on to my second question, which is, do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country? From the interview session, Sir Abdul Hakim highlights the influence of both British and American English in Nigeria, noting that while British English is the primary form taught in schools, American English has become increasingly popular, especially in secondary education, leading to differences in spelling color versus color. He points out that social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook are key in spreading both versions of English, with influencers teaching their followers how to pronounce words in these different styles. Sir Abdul Hakim also mentioned Nigerian Pidgin, an informal and vibrant form of English widely spoken in the country, which adds to Nigeria's linguistic diversity. He concludes that while these different versions of English have benefits, like expanding language skills, they also cause problems, such as inconsistency in how they are used and the possible loss of local cultural identity. Next, I am going to explain about the summary of findings and reflection for aspect number 2, which is current progress and direction. The third question is, what is the current status of English use in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace and daily life? So, Sir Abdul Hakim explained that in Nigeria, English is the main language used in formal situations like universities and businesses, where it is the standard way of communicating. However, in everyday life, Nigerians commonly speak Pidgin English, which is a more casual form of English used by people from different ethnic groups to understand each other. While Pidgin is not formal English, it is an important part of daily conversation. Sir Abdul Hakim also points out that English acts as the lingua franca of Nigeria, meaning it is the official language that brings together the country's diverse people. This shows that both formal English and informal Pidgin are used in Nigeria, each serving different purposes in communication. Now, let us jump to the fourth question, which is, do you think the dominance of English benefit or threaten local language? Why? Sir Abdul Hakim explained that Nigeria has 2,050 ethnic groups, each spoken its own language. He mentioned the three main languages spoken in the country, which is Igbo, Hausa and Yoruba, and explained that while English is used for teaching in schools, students can also choose to learn one of the local languages. Sir Abdul Hakim, who is from the Yoruba ethnic group, speaks both Yoruba and English. He points out that although local languages are important for culture, English is needed for communicating with people around the world, which is why it is more commonly used in international settings. This shows how both local languages and English are used in Nigeria, with English being the main language for global communication. For the fifth question, I asked his opinion. Do you think English will always be the world's language? Why or why not? So Sir Abdul Hakim discusses the global dominance of English, particularly in countries like the USA and in Europe, where it is the primary language of communication despite the presence of other languages like French and Greek. He emphasized that a large percentage of people in this region speak English, making it essential for global communication. While he advocates for learning English fluently, he also stresses that this should not lead to forgetting one local language, as they are important for cultural preservation. Using his experience of learning Malay in Malaysia as an example, Sir Abdul Hakim explained that he believed in learning global language while also respecting and valuing local languages. Moving on to our last aspect, which is the phonological feature. So our sixth question is, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen? Sir Abdul Hakim discusses the significant regional differences in English accent within the United Kingdom. Nothing that even within England, accents can vary greatly. He gives example of how the Yorkshire accent can be difficult to understand, while the accent in the west of the UK have their own distinct phonological feature. Sir Abdul Hakim highlights that this variation in pronunciation can make communication challenging, even though the same language is being spoken. His mention of phonology shows an understanding of the technical aspect of language, emphasizing the complexity and diversity of English accents across different regions. For question number 7, I asked him, what are some English sound or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? Okay, so for this question, Sir Abdul Hakim discusses the pronunciation challenges faced by different ethnic groups in Nigeria when speaking English, highlighting how the native languages influence their English pronunciation. He explained that the Hausa ethnic group struggle with pronouncing the P and F sound, often replacing F with P. The Yoruba group has difficulty with SH and CH sounds, leading to a pronunciation like sure for courage. Meanwhile, the Igbo group tends to replace the R sound with H, as seen in their pronunciation of rumah as huma. This example reflects how regional languages in Nigeria shape English pronunciation, showcasing the country's linguistic diversity. Moving on to our last question, which is, can you hear the difference between words like sheep or sheep? How do you try to pronounce them differently? So, Sir Abdul Hakim explained that his education in oral English has given him the ability to distinguish between similar sounding words like sheep and sheep. Noting that in sheep the H is short, while in sheep the E is long. He believed in this understanding of pronunciation provide him with an advantage, as someone without a strong foundation in oral English might mistakenly pronounce this word incorrectly. He also mentioned using transcription to indicate pronunciation differences, which reflect his awareness of phonetic symbols. This highlights the importance of oral English education in helping learners avoid common pronunciation errors and communicate more effectively. To summarize, the spread of English in Nigeria stemmed from British colonization, making it the main language for education, governance, and communication in a country with over 2,050 ethnic groups. As a lingua franca, English unites diverse communities and is essential for global connection. Sir Abdul Hakim views align with this, emphasizing English's role in academic and daily life. However, he highlights the growing influence of American English through social media, diverging from the traditional dominance of British English. His mention of Nigerian pidgin reflects the country's linguistic diversity, showing how English adapts to local contexts while remaining an unfailing force.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is FARAH binti HAMDAN and my ID number is SCC230711. Today I'm going to present to you about summary of my findings and reflection from my interview. My interview is Miss Leonie Sophie Arwiller. She is 20 years old and currently studying mechanical engineering, and she is from Bavaria, Germany, making it an expanding circle category, which is using English as second language in this country. So hi, my name is Farah Aina, but you can call me... Hi, my name is Farah Aina, but you can call me Farah. I'm an English communication student from KPM3 Iskandar, Malaysia. So before I start my interview session today, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit of background about where you are, what you're studying right now?
Hi, I'm Leonie. I live in Germany and I'm studying mechanical engineering.
Okay. Yeah. So, Miss Leonie, are you ready for the interview session?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, for the first question, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country?
Well, I think with social media a lot, because social media, there's a lot in English, and also I had to communicate with like neighboring countries, I guess, and for work, yeah.
So you use English as your second language in Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the next question is, do you think technology like social media or the internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like with social media a lot, because a lot is in English. For example, yeah, Insta or also TikTok, like a lot is in English. And so, yeah, we also influence a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so for the current usage of English in your country, right? So what is the current status of English use in your country today? And is it common to use English in school, workplace, and also daily life?
Yeah, in school it's, I think, obligatory, like to have English as a second, third language or something. And in everyday life, it's also like for work, I think it's important too. And like people or like the youth, teens also use it in everyday language, like they include it with German.
So when you use English, right, does it like compulsory for every student in school to learn English, or is just like an elective subject?
No, I think it's compulsory.
Compulsory, okay. So from your point of view, do you think that the dominance of English benefits or threatens your local language? And if you feel so, why did you feel that threaten it? Does it threaten or not?
I think it benefits us because like you can communicate with more people who also have different point of views. Yeah, it creates diversity. I think it benefits.
Okay, in your opinion, do you think English will always be the worst language? Why and why not?
I do think that, yeah, I think it probably will be, because like it's already spoken everywhere, and the future generations are also learning it. So I don't know, maybe if China becomes like a bigger nation influence, maybe it's gonna become more important. But this state, I think English is still gonna be.
Do you find it difficult to use English within your friends or even, with the locals? Is it hard to use English with them?
No, I think like my friends or something, they also understand English, they can speak English, and like they incorporate it in our life. For example, if we talk about something, we say like I doubt it or something like that. And yeah.
So for the next question, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If so, why does it happen?
Yeah, it happens that I misunderstand or hear something wrong. I think also because of the different accents. So different people pronounce words differently, also because maybe we don't know how to pronounce correctly. And also sometimes if someone speaks too fast, it's hard to understand. Yeah, but like it helps with the context.
I see. Okay. So for the following questions, what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find it hard to pronounce?
I think the TH sound is a little bit, yeah, TH, like that or this.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, this one is a little bit complicated. Yeah.
So for the last question, can you hear the differences between words like ship or ship, and how do you try to pronounce them differently?
Well, sometimes, yeah, I think maybe sometimes I misheard them too, but I think it's also, for in this example, it's pretty obvious if you like include the context, which one is meant. And I try, for example, for ship, it's like shorter sound, and like sheep a little bit longer, so that there's a difference.
I see. Okay, I think that's all the question that I have for you for this interview session. So I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you so much. Even we're from, different countries, different times. So thank you so much, Leonie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was nice.
So this is out of context, but the first question is from aspect 1, which is historical and development. My first question is, from your perspective, how do you think English became so important in your country? Miss Leonie said, with social media, there's a lot of English usage that can be used with neighboring countries and in field of work. Unfortunately, she didn't mention any historical event about English coming to her country. Now, moving on to our second question, which is, do you think technology like social media or internet has influenced how people learn or use English in your country? From the interview session, Ms. Yoni stated that social media plays a significant role in her country. In her opinion, social media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram has exposed the locals to the usage of English. However, she did agree that technology like social media has influenced the locals to use English more often. For the third question, I asked her, what is the current status of English used in your country today? Is it common in school, workplace, and daily life? Ms. Leonie said that the usage of English in school is obligatory because it is learned as second language and in everyday life, especially at work and for teenagers. She also mentioned that English is incorporated into their daily conversation where they mix English with their native language by using words such as doubt. She does acknowledge the current status of English in her country. Moving on to the next question. Do you think the dominance of English benefits or threatens local language? Why? According to Ms. Leonie, it benefits them because it helps them communicate with many people and can create diversity. Next, for the fifth question, in your opinion, do you think that English will always be the world's language? Why or why not? The result is Miss Leonie said that she thinks English might be the world's language because it is already spoken everywhere and every generation is also learning it. So she thinks English is going to be the world's language. Moving on to our last aspect, which is the phonological aspects. For our sixth question, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood others people's pronunciation when speaking with others using English? If it is so, why does it happen? My interviewee said that it does happen when she misunderstood or hears something wrong because of the different accent, because different people pronounce different words differently, also because maybe they don't know how to pronounce the words correctly. And also, moreover, she said that if someone speaks too fast or too slow, she couldn't understand, but it helps with a certain context. For question number 7, which is, what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find it hard to pronounce? Miss Yuni stated that the th sound like that or this because it is more complicated. However, she did not elaborate more on why does it hard to pronounce in terms of the word's usage. And for the last question, can you hear the difference between the word ship or ship? How do you try to pronounce them differently? So Miss Leonie said that sometimes she mispronounced those words too, but she said based on the examples, it is pretty obvious if it used in different contexts. And she tried to pronounce the word ship, which has shorter sound, and ship is a little bit longer. The interview highlights the growing importance of English in Germany, particularly in education, the workplace, and daily life. Social media and digital platforms have made English more accessible, while its role in business and internet communication continues to expand. Despite its widespread use, English does not threaten the German language, but rather enhances communication and cultural exchange. However, challenges remain, such as pronunciation difficulties with the sound th and distinguishing similar words like ship and ship. Overall, the interview believed that English will remain the dominant language, offering valuable opportunities in education, careers, and international interactions while coexisting with German in daily conversation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we're gonna present about a phonological aspect from our interviewee's answer. So for article, we choose Nigeria and Mozambique, while for expanding, we interviewee from Indonesia, Zimbabwe, and German. So now let's start with our first question, which is, do you sometimes misheard or misunderstood other people pronunciation when speaking with others using English? So we're gonna start with the similarities between Nigeria and Mozambique. So both response highlight that their native language affect how they perceive and understand English pronunciations. So like Nigeria mentioned that difficulty understanding English due to phonological differences, while Mozambique say that there are struggles with English sounds that do not exist in Portuguese. The second one is both mention that differences in phonology or sound system that make it difficult to distinguish English words. So as for Nigeria, discuss how different English accents between Yorkshire versus West England that have unique phonological features that are hard to understand. So Mozambique state that certain English sound do not exist in Portuguese, making some words difficult to differentiate. And the last one, both response highlight that pronunciation differences can cause miscommunications, like Nigeria find different UK accents challenging, while Mozambique finds English pronunciation challenging due to unfamiliar sounds. So For short, both Nigeria and Mozambique explain the difficulties in understanding English due to phonological differences between English and their native language that lead to misinterpretation of pronunciations. Okay, next we go to similarities in the expanded circle for Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany. So when communicating in English, speakers from Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany experience common challenge that can lead to misunderstanding. So based on their answer, we can identify two key similarities. Okay, so for the first one is accents can create a misunderstanding when communicate with others. So all three countries accent play a major role in communication difficulties. So as the speaker from Zimbabwe mentioned that people who speak a language other than English have their own way of pronouncing words. So this can lead to confusions. Similarly to German, that response highlight that different accents can cause people to pronounce words differently, that make it hard to understand. The second one, speaking too fast can make understanding difficult. So another common issue is speaking speed. The response from Indonesia states that speaking too quickly or using unfamiliar words or having unclear pronunciation can lead to confusions. So the German response also supports this, mentioning that when someone speaks too fast, it can be difficult to understand the message, even if the listener tries to use context for clarity. So overall, speakers from Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany face a similar challenge when speaking in English. Okay, okay. The next one, we're gonna go for the differences between misunderstanding words. Okay, for the first one, we start with outer circles. So in Nigeria, pronunciation challenges arise due to the variety of English accents, even within the UK. So, for example, someone from Yorkshire speaks very differently from someone in the west of the UK, making it difficult to understand the phonology. Okay, for Mozambique, many people struggles with distinguishing English sounds that do not exist in Portuguese. So these language differences make it challenging to differentiate certain words in English. Okay, now let's move to the expanding circles. So in the expanding circle, communication difficulties and misunderstanding is due to pronunciation issue actually. So in Zimbabwe, first language influence affect pronunciations. So this can make it difficult to distinguish between similar words. So like example, words like weather or weather sound the same. That leads to confusions. So sometimes people need to repeat words multiple times for clarity or for understanding the context. Next one is Indonesia. So our interviewee said that misunderstanding occur due to different accents, unclear pronunciation, and unfamiliar words. But speaking too quickly also or background noise can contribute to communication difficulties. And the last one, Germany. For Germany, mispronunciation and different accents can lead to misunderstanding. Sometimes people hear things incorrectly because they are unfamiliar with certain pronunciation or because the speaker is talking too fast. So, however, understanding the context can help in interpreting the meaning correctly. So, as for the conclusion, the challenge are common in both language learning and everyday conversation. So, like to improve communication, we can focus on clarity, repetition, and understanding the context of conversations. Okay.
Okay, thank you to my one of the team members, ZAKIAH. So now let's continue our discussion on the question, which is what are some English sounds or words that you think people in your country find hard to pronounce? So For the first one is I'm going to talk about the similarities between the outer and expanding circle. So for the outer category, which includes Nigeria and also Mozambique country, both Nigeria and Mozambique sometimes struggle with pronunciation the letter R due to their linguistic backgrounds, which shape how they perceive and produce sounds. This phonetic difference makes it difficult for native speakers to adapt the stronger English words. However, pronunciation habits can be improved with consistent speech training, listening exercise, and tongue placement techniques. So on the right side, we have the expanding circle category, which includes Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and also Germany. In these three particular countries, the locals find the TH sound difficult to pronounce because it doesn't naturally exist in their native languages, making it more complicated than speaking in their mother tongue. Instead of pronouncing words like think or this correctly, speakers often substitute the TH sounds with a more familiar one. With time and consistent effort, mastering the TH sound becomes much easier, proving that English language can be learned as a journey that anyone can succeed in. So next, for the differences, for Nigeria, a few ethnic groups such as Hausa experience difficulty in clearly pronouncing the letters P and F. As a result, certain words may sound different from the intended pronunciation, which can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. This happens because the phonetic structures in their native language do not always include these sounds, making it harder for speakers to distinguish and pronounce them correctly. Meanwhile, in Mozambique, the historical influence of Portuguese colonization has shaped how many locals pronounce certain words. Since Portuguese became a dominant language in the country, many speakers tend to substitute the letter R and L sounds in their speech, leading to noticeable pronunciation differences. This linguistic shift is a result of centuries of cultural and linguistic. Next, for the expanding countries, in Indonesia, many speakers tend to replace the word V sounds with a B sound, making words like very sounds more like berry. This happens because the V sound does not naturally exist in many Indonesian languages, making it tricky for locals to pronounce it correctly. Meanwhile, in Zimbabwe, pronunciation differences are often noticed in numbers as their native language includes specific ways of rolling or emphasizing sounds, which influences how they pronounce numerical figures in other languages. This can sometimes lead to difficulties in communication, especially in formal settings where clarity is essential. On the other hand, in Germany, Miss Leonie did not provide specific details about which words are particularly difficult for locals to pronounce. However, it is common knowledge that even fluent English speakers from Germany sometimes struggle with the sounds that are not present in the Germany phonetic system. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Farahana. So now, let's continue our discussion on the comparison of English pronunciation in different countries, focusing on the distinction between sheep and sheep. First, let's look at the question. Can you hear the difference between words like sheep and sheep? How do you try to pronounce them differently? Now, let's examine the similarities in how different countries perceive and pronounce these words. On the left side, we have the outer category, which includes Nigeria and Mozambique. Both responses from this country highlight the importance of distinguishing between sheep and sheep. They specifically mention vowel sounds as the key differentiator. On the right side, we see the expanding category, which include Indonesia, Germany, and Zimbabwe. In this country as well, speakers recognize the difference in pronunciation with a focus on vowel sounds. This comparison shows that across different regions, there is a shared awareness of vowel distinctions in English, although the way they approach pronunciation might vary. To summarize, regardless of the country, speaker acknowledge the importance of differentiating between similar sounding words like ship and ship to ensure clarity in communication. So now, let's move on the differences in how country approach this pronunciation challenge. On the left side, we have the outer category, which is include Nigeria and Mozambique. In Nigeria, Sir Abdul Hakim highlights the importance of formal training in oral English. He mentions that listening, speaking, and writing are key areas of focus. He believed that this structured education helps speaker understand the difference between sheep and sheep. Meanwhile, in Mozambique, Miss Delvia does not mention any specific training in oral English, but she suggests that there is an intuitive understanding of the pronunciation difference. Next, on the right side, we have the expanding category, which is include Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany. In Zimbabwe, Sir Russell emphasized the effort required to differentiate these sounds. In Indonesia, Sir Abid takes a different approach by explaining the physical process of pronunciation, focusing on how the mouth and tongue should move. Meanwhile, in Germany, Miss Leonie brings in an external perspective, highlighting the role of context in understanding pronunciation and noting occasional mispronunciation. This comparison shows that different countries approach pronunciation learning in unique ways, some through formal education, some through effort and practice, and others through intuitive understanding and context. So, to conclude, while all speakers acknowledge the challenge of differentiating sheep and sheep, their method of mastering the distinction vary depending on their educational background and linguistic environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Farah Nabila. So next, I will be talking about the differences and similarities between outer and expanding country in their usage of English. So first, let us start with the similarities between Nigeria and Mozambique. As we all know, Nigeria and Mozambique is in outer category. First, both countries use English in education, especially in higher education. In Nigeria, English is the main language of instruction in university, and while in Mozambique, it is taught as a foreign language and required for higher education. Next, English is also used in business in both countries because it helps in communication within companies and international fields. After that, in tourism, English is also important for them for interacting with tourists and foreigners in both country, Nigeria and Mozambique. Lastly, in Nigeria and Mozambique, English is not the native language for most people. In Nigeria, many people speak local language or pidgin English in informal settings, while in Mozambique, Portuguese is the main language for them. In conclusion, Nigeria and Mozambique share similarities in their use of English in education, business, and tourism, but English is not their primary language in their country. Next, apart from that, I will be presenting the similarities in the usage of English in Indonesia, Zimbabwe, and Germany, based on the response I gathered. First, in all three countries, English is taught in school. English is a part of the education system. And in Zimbabwe, English is the main language used in schools. In Germany, learning English as a second language is obligatory for them. Second, in this expanding country, English is commonly used in workplace. In Indonesia, it is especially important in big cities. And English is the main language for business in Zimbabwe. In Germany, English is important in professional settings. Third, English is incorporated into daily conversation. In Indonesia, people often use English on social media and the internet. In Zimbabwe, English is widely spoken even in national events. And in Germany, teens frequently mix English with their native language in everyday conversations. In summary, for the similarities between these three countries, shows that English plays a significant role in education, workplace, and daily interaction. This demonstrates the global influence of the English language in different regions. Okay, so next I will be presenting the differences in the usage of English between Nigeria and Mozambique. I will start with Nigeria and Mozambique, which they are in outer category. In Nigeria, English is the official language and serves as the lingua franca, while in Mozambique, English is not an official language, as Portuguese is the dominant language in their country. In informal communication, many Nigerians speak pidgin English, which helps locals communicate easily. Mozambique, Portuguese is the main language and used in informal settings. In conclusion, Nigeria and Mozambique use English differently. Nigeria recognizes it as an official language, uses it as the primary language in education, and has pidgin English for informal communication. Meanwhile, Mozambique does not have English as an official language, teaches it as a foreign language, and primarily uses Portuguese in daily conversations. And lastly, I will be presenting the differences in the usage of English in Indonesia, Zimbabwe, and Germany based on the response I gathered. Firstly, in Indonesia, English is important for education and jobs, but not everyone in Indonesia speaks it well. While it taught in schools and used in workplace, its proficiency varies among people. Second, in Zimbabwe, English is the main language for them for business, schools, and national events. It is widely spoken across the country, even though other languages exist alongside it. And third, in Germany, English is obligatory in schools and plays a key role in professional life. Teenagers often mix English words with their native language in daily conversations, incorporating code mixing into their speech. In summary, while all three countries use English in education and workplace, the level of usage and importance varies. In Indonesia, not everyone speaks it fluently. In Zimbabwe, it is a dominant language, and in Germany, it is integrated into everyday conversations through code mixing. That's all from me.
Alright, thank you, Farhana. Overall, based on our findings, English plays a crucial role in communication across different countries, but its usage and pronunciation challenge vary. Nigeria and Mozambique struggle with phonological differences, while Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany face issues with accents and fast speech. Pronunciation challenges also differ with Nigeria and Mozambique, finding the R sound difficult, whereas Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany struggle with the sound, PH sound. Despite these difficulties, practice and training help improve pronunciations. Additionally, English usage varies. Nigeria uses it officially alongside Pidgin English. Mozambique relies more on Portuguese, and in Zimbabwe, Indonesia, and Germany, its importance in education and workplace differs. In conclusion, while English connects people globally, its role is shaped by linguistic, historical, and social influence. That's all from us. Thank you.